Imagine a place where hunger was a harsh reality, poverty was rampant, and lives were lost due to the scarcity of food. And on the world map, this country was a mere speck, so tiny that even zooming in didn't reveal it easily. Despite its small size, it was densely populated, with over 7,000 people crammed into every square kilometer. That's the picture of despair that was once painted for Singapore. But then, something remarkable happened. In just a few years, this struggling nation transformed into one of the wealthiest countries on Earth. Once plagued by poverty, it now boasts 1 millionaire among every 6 citizens, securing the 6th highest GDP per capita globally, even outpacing the US, and reigning as Asia's crowned leader. But how did this miraculous turnaround occur? Well, this remarkable turnaround wasn't a stroke of luck, it resulted from the visionary leadership of one individual, Lee Kuan Yew. In today's video, you'll understand one thing properly: if you elect the right leader, then he'll steer a nation toward greater heights and prosperity. Now, let's zoom in on the map. See that tiny dot surrounded by 64 small islands? That's Singapore. It's a city-state, a nation without a separate city, where every inch is meticulously divided into regions. Spanning just 719 square kilometers, it's minuscule compared to its neighbors Malaysia and Indonesia. Yet its strategic location, nestled between the Malacca and Sunda Straits, has always been its strength, connecting vital sea routes between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. Back in the 7th century, these straits were the superhighways of global trade, connecting merchants from the Middle East, India, and Europe with the riches of East Asia. Among these straits, the Malacca Strait, though smaller, was preferred due to its accessibility. Various kings vied for control over these lucrative routes, levying taxes on passing ships. One such ruler, Sang Nila, stumbled upon an island during a hunting trip and christened it Singapura, after spotting a mysterious creature resembling a lion. Thus, Singapore got its name, a lion city. As centuries passed, European powers coveted this strategic hub. The Portuguese and Dutch wrestled for dominance, realizing the wealth it could bring. Meanwhile, across the seas, the British East India Company eyed this strategic route. So, instead of direct conflict, they found a cunning solution. In 1819, British officer Thomas Stamford Raffles arrived near the Strait of Malacca. There, he found an area controlled by the Sultan of Johor, known today as Singapore. Taking advantage of the situation, the British manipulated the Sultan into signing a treaty, essentially handing over control of Singapore in exchange for just 8,000 Spanish dollars. Then British invested in building extensive port infrastructure in Singapore and offered tax-free trading to attract ships worldwide. As ships poured in, so did people. What was once a deserted island saw an influx of Indian, Chinese, and Malaysian migrants. But with this rapid growth came challenges. The British, focused solely on profits and port security, turned a blind eye to the growing population's needs. With no effective administration in place, illegal activities flourished. Singapore became notorious for opium dens, gambling, slave trading, and violence. The British, realizing they weren't reaping the expected reward from Singapore, looked elsewhere for profit. China emerged as a lucrative market, but the British faced a dilemma. They had nothing China needed. Their solution was as cunning as it was devious. They flooded China with opium, creating a dependency that forced China to trade. The opium trade boomed, spreading addiction not only in China but also in Singapore, where a significant portion of the population worked as laborers for meager wages. By 1847, Singapore's population had skyrocketed to 70,000, with a staggering 15,000 people addicted to opium. The consequences were dire. Poverty, addiction, and crime plagued the streets. Opium became as common as tea, exchanged instead of money. Desperation drove people to theft and violence, but amidst the chaos, a glimmer of hope emerged. In November 1869, the opening of the Suez Canal drastically altered trade dynamics, diverting traffic away from the Sunda and Malacca Straits. The influx of traders fueled demand for labor, drawing workers from neighboring nations to Singapore. However, the region faced turmoil with World War I, the Spanish flu, the Great Depression, and World War II, including a brutal Japanese occupation before Singapore's eventual liberation and return to British rule. With the British returning, they realized the importance of establishing local governance in Singapore to maintain order and facilitate trade. Then, in 1959, Singapore held its first general election. Lee Kuan Yew, a game changer, formed the People's Action Party and snagged 43 out of 51 seats, becoming Singapore's PM. Lee transformed Singapore from a British cash cow into a powerhouse. When Lee took office, he knew Singapore had to stand tall or risk fading away. The fear of chaos post-British rule loomed large, especially with Singapore's sizable Chinese population, attracting the attention of communist giants like the Soviet Union and China. Yet even scarier was the mess Lee found at home: poverty, slums, opium addiction, etc. One of Lee's foremost challenges was to unify a fragmented society. See, back then, Singaporeans were more into their communities than the nation. Lee recognized that a divided nation could never realize its full potential, so he initiated reforms, such as establishing the Housing and Development Board to eradicate slums and provide affordable housing. Lee also prioritized education, creating government schools with superior facilities and promoting multiculturalism within the curriculum. The government also actively promoted unity among the diverse populace, organizing cultural events celebrating Singapore's multicultural heritage. As a majority in Singapore belonged to Chinese, Malay, Tamil, and English-speaking people, so all these 4 languages were made official. Despite these internal strides, Singapore's economy remained vulnerable, heavily reliant on tin and rubber exports controlled by Malaysia. Adding to the worry, security was in the hands of the British. Recognizing the need for economic autonomy and security, he set out to forge a path for Singapore's future. First up, fostering ties with Malaysia, even championing Malay as the national language to strengthen bonds. The goal? Integration, even if it meant merging with Malaysia as a state. Yet, challenges persisted. Tensions arose despite efforts to merge with Malaysia, leading to Singapore's forced separation in 1965. Lee held a press conference that day, declaring Singapore a democratic and independent nation, the Republic of Singapore. But he didn't want to be separated from Malaysia. In fact, when he was doing the press conference, even at that time, he cried. On the other side, British withdrawal from Singapore in 1970 left Prime Minister Lee and Singaporeans concerned about security and job losses. But after some time, PM Lee realized that Singapore's fate rested in its own hands, as no savior was coming to rescue them. He knew that Singapore had to innovate to thrive. He also knew corruption could derail even the best laid plans. So, he implemented the Prevention of Corruption Act in 1960 and imposed strict penalties for corruption in any sector, including fines of up to 1 lakh Singapore dollars or 5 to 7 years of imprisonment. And this entire department was kept out of the government's control. Then, Lee initiated talks with Southeast Asian neighbors to enhance cooperation, transforming Jurong into an industrial hub with tax incentives and favorable labor laws, leading to a surge in foreign investment and the eradication of unemployment by 1970. In the 1980s, Lee introduced incentives like high salaries for skilled workers and 5-year tax breaks for foreign firms producing top-tier goods. By 1993, Singapore dominated as the largest exporter of computer hard disks, but they didn't stop there. They excelled in tourism, transportation, communication, and brain services. Today, Singapore boasts safety, cleanliness, and prosperity. With top-notch healthcare, education, and transport, it's a beacon of success. PM Lee's focus on long-term success, not short-term politics, earned him respect. He knew that if Singapore didn't stand on its own, it wouldn't survive. So he focused on making sure Singapore could make it on its own, even if it meant he might lose his position. Singapore's rise to success is an amazing story. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Cheers!